The goal of the infusion system is to create an impactful feeling of progression when you increase the power of an item you enjoy using. An infusion system with no scarcity around the materials would diminish this impact. To that end, we tapped into a material with inherent scarcity, enhancement cores, to use as one of the keystone materials for this process. Yeah, that's kind of stupid when you realize that there are people with literally thousands of these cores because they were at the right place at the right time farming these materials before Bungie stopped the ability to farm those materials. But hey, fucking details. What's going on, ladies and gents, boys and girls, guardians of all ages? Joker back again, once again. Infusion cores, why? They suck, nobody likes them. Just remove them. Remember when Bungie took away the ability for people who played two of the same class to get the same amount of powerful gear as players that played all three classes? In some fucking misguided attempt to force players into playing all three classes for maximum rewards? Yeah, that was fucking stupid. And so are enhancement cores, because they're basically doing the same thing. Currently, enhancement cores hinder player progression in an arbitrary RNG-based way that has nothing to do with actual player progression. Destiny has a lot of RNG, and most of it I don't think people mind. Personally, I like seeing a weapon drop and going into my inventory and going, hey, this is a fusion rifle with a roll that is either godly or one that I never thought to use. Yeah, most of the time they're trash and you dismantle them and you get some weapon parts and some legendary shards, but on the occasion where you get something cool, you get something interesting, you get something godly, well, that makes the system worthwhile. It's a healthy kind of RNG that keeps the game moving forward with a minimum but understandable level of frustration. And there's only a handful of instances in the game, like with raid weapons, where you're on your 300th raid and you still haven't got 1,000 voices, but the blueberry that you got off the LFG, this is his first raid and he gets it. Yeah, that can be frustrating. But other than that, generally speaking, RNG in Destiny is in a healthy place, at least when it comes to weapons and armor. Some of the cosmetics, on the other hand, that you need for different triumphs, definitely not in a healthy place. But I think ultimately, because we're playing a looter shooter, most people can go, okay, you know what, that's the nature of a looter shooter, this is what I signed up for, and deal with it. But then we have things that get in the way of playing the game, get in the way of progression, like infusion cores. A piece of arbitrary RNG that is literally there to do nothing more than inflate the time that the player has to grind, get what they want, look how they want, and play with what they want. There's no real way to actually farm infusion cores, and I think that's one of the biggest issues with the entire system. Sure, you can go get a spider bounty and you can buy a couple from Spider, but seriously, nobody is doing these bounties. Nobody wants to go to the Tangled Shore and farm ghost fragments, then sell them to the spider, then get this one bounty where I have to go to a planet and I have to wait for a wanted enemy to show up just so I can kill it, just so I can get one core. For one core that usually won't upgrade a player's armor, that's an excessive amount of investment. And it's the type of investment that doesn't respect player time. It's not fun, it's not compelling, it's a chore. It's a tedious task that you have to do in order to get an item that you need to level up so you can use what you want and play the endgame content that we're all here to play. You can also get enhancement cores by leveling up your Crucible rank and by dismantling other legendary gear. Hopefully, maybe, sometimes. That's where the RNG aspect comes in. Oh yeah, and there's scrapper bounties, but again, those are RNG based, so you can't really count on them, you can't farm them. In Season of Opulence, these scrapper bounties will be removed entirely, though they will likely actually just be repurposed as gunsmith bounties. Gunsmith bounties will be a bounty that you can purchase from the gunsmith with gunsmith materials. As with scrapper bounties, each one of these will include, among other things, an enhancement core as a reward when completed. But ultimately, this solves nothing. Enhancement cores are a tacked-on inflation mechanic designed to, like with the inability to play on multiple of the same character and earn powerful gear like you could if you played 3 different characters, or cross-infuse gear from class to class like you could in Destiny 1, to inflate and pad out the leveling of a single character. Which I've always found fucking stupid, because realistically, the game doesn't start until the player reaches the endgame levels. And currently, there is an RNG wall on top of an RNG wall. I've got to get lucky enough to get the right drops in the right slots at a significantly high enough power increase that it's worth infusion. None of this +1 or it's just as powerful as what I have equipped, or it's less powerful than what I have equipped, wasting my fucking time. None of this bullshit. No. I've got to get lucky enough to get the right drops at the right time in the right place to progress. And you know what? For the most part, that's fine. That's okay. This is a looter shooter, it's on the box, that is what you are signing up for. That is the grind that you wanted when you bought this game. Okay, fine, fair enough. Granted, I will say that there is enough weekly activities at this point that going through everything on one character shouldn't just net you one new light level. That's kind of absurd. But on top of that absurdity, which, like I said, we signed up for, there's another level of RNG when it comes to enhancement cores. Enhancement cores do not provide players with a meaningful choice. Anyone at Bungie who believes that bullshit is categorically mistaken. All enhancement cores currently do is keep players out of endgame content for much longer. Because fuck you, that's why. The meaningful choice should come from builds and build diversity. Do I want to hunt down armor that has perfect stat distribution, that's completely centered around using shotguns and hand cannons? Do I want to get perfect raid gear? Do I want to get perfect Gambit Prime gear? Do I want to invest my time and effort into these endgame activities that allow me to get gear to make these endgame activities easier so I can farm these endgame activities to try to get the pinnacle weapon of these endgame activities? That's why I'm not necessarily offended when somebody says, hey, I've run Last Wish a dozen, 2 dozen, 3 dozen times to get 1,000 voices, and I still don't have it. That's the point of the game. To chase after these high-end pinnacle weapons and rewards, not trying to level up just so I can get in the fucking door. And I get it. You want some kind of level grind gate for players. That's why the way powerful gear works right now, when it works, isn't horrifically offensive. It can be annoying from time to time, but it's not the worst thing ever. It only becomes a problem when Bungie breaks it at the beginning of every expansion because they try to rebalance it again, and when combined with the added redundancy and level gating that infusion cores intrinsically bring to the table because the scarcity of the item is meant to make player choices compelling. Then you create a system that isn't there for the linear progression of the player. You create a system that is designed specifically to do nothing more than get in the player's way. My choices aren't compelling anymore. My choice isn't, do I want to use this cool thing that I have or this cool thing I have? No, it's, oh, well, I guess I have to use this fucking rocket launcher that sucks because it's the highest thing I have. And it's not high enough that I would be willing to waste the cores to infuse something that I want when, after I'm done with this activity, I might have higher level gear, hopefully, because that's the point of the activity. It's just more frustrating than it is compelling. Like, I get it, there's sometimes that you have to use things that you don't want to use, but that's not because you're pigeonholed into using it because you need the power boost. It's because weapons like Whisper, like Thunderlord, are so powerful that they're part of the toolbox that you should be using in the end game, and that's a different kind of dynamic. Every job has a tool for it. But with the way the current infusion system works, you don't get to use what you need or what you enjoy. You use what you have to use because late level. When introduced, Masterworks, Masterwork cores, and now infusion cores were a band-aid to a problem. They were a stopgap measure, but that problem's now been fixed with the introduction of random rolls. They're just a holdover. Masterworking weapons is fine, though an argument could be made that in the current iteration, a bad masterwork can ruin a god-rolled weapon, and that the entire Masterwork system may in and of itself have outlived its usefulness. You'll note that there's no new exotic catalyst for post-Forsaken weapons. It's because post-Forsaken weapons are being released in a way better state than their Destiny 1 counterparts, and don't need a catalyst. Most times they just need a buff. So Bungie is trying to find a purpose for the remnants of this tacked-on system. A system I don't think was ever meant to last. And the system that they came up with, Infusion Cores, is clearly a system people are not a fan of. Largely because it's redundant in lieu of the systems that are intrinsic to a looter shooter and level progression within a looter shooter. I mean, I've already got enough RNG to get those levels and get those items. Do I really need more RNG tied to leveling up those items? Really? 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 No. No, I don't. The system doesn't make me feel like I'm making compelling choices. It doesn't fill me with pride and accomplishment. It just feels like it's in the fucking way. But hey, those are just my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below, and like always, stay frosty.